Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Best of the AFC West Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 29th, week 12. We've already gone through 12 weeks. Week 12 is in the books, and we have some very exciting games to cover. I'm your host, Chiefs fan, Prather Silverthorne, and with me, as always, is Broncos fan, Chris Kraus.
Go Broncos.
Oh. Raiders fan Tyler Stevens.
Raiders!
And Chargers fan Sumant Golapudi.
Go Charge, go!
All right, well, before we talk about the super exciting games that we had over the weekend, let's go ahead and roll on into some news items real quick. Tyler, you want to start it off?
All right, yeah. Well, as many in the football world today know, the Raider Nation held its collective breath this past Sunday when Derek Carr left the game at the beginning of the third quarter with an injury on his throwing hand. It is said he dislocated his right pinky finger in two places, but miraculously managed to avoid any fractures and actually came back into the game to lead the Raiders to victory. So the injury is considered to be minor, and Carr is not expected to miss any time. Other news, everybody distracted by Carr's Skywalker glove. Many failed to notice the quarterback DJ Hayden, who was filling in on the outside for cornerback David Emerson, who was precautionarily held out after taking the Mexico game a little harder than most players, with what seemed to be a hamstring injury, has left the game. Now, we haven't heard any news on the severity of his injury at this moment. It could be important, though, in a thin secondary that was forced to play Antonio Hamilton, I know, who on the outside, especially if David Emerson takes longer than expected to return the action in an assumed playoff push. That's all I have from the Raiders.
All right. As far as the Chiefs go, dealing with several injuries for the last couple weeks, actually, particularly Jeremy Maclin, D. Ford, and Jay Howard. Andy Reid was asked about that on Monday during his press conference, and he did his typical coach speak, saying, they're day by day, we don't really have a set timetable, blah, blah, blah. So their availability going forward is still up in the air. Usually he clarifies these things on Wednesday, so Chiefs fans, look out for that. And Dontari Poe left the game against Denver in the second quarter with a back injury, did not return. Not good news for him. He's had back problems through his career, and he is a very, very large human being, and so back problems with someone that large tend to linger around, and it's just going to be an ongoing thing, I think. Chris Jones and Rakeem Nunez-Roches have played very well anyway, so it shouldn't hurt the team too badly. We're doing well on the defensive line, even without Poe. So that's all I've got for the Chiefs.
All right, I'll jump in for the Chargers. As you can imagine, the injury report has returned. And the first injury I'm about to talk about today, actually, I don't even know when this happened during the game, which is surprising to me because I feel like we have those season-ending injuries get publicized almost immediately just on the field. So outside linebacker Jerry Atauchi, former second-round pick out of Georgia Tech, veteran player on the outside, has a foot injury. And this foot injury is apparently severe enough where he needs surgery and needs a few months for recovery. Basically, that puts him out for the season. As I just said, I don't know when this happened during the Texans game. I just heard about it after, and it's honestly super surprising, but somehow not that surprising given our injury histories. So there's that. And wide receiver Tyrell Williams left the game in Houston with an injury to his shoulder. It looks like there's a possibility of a torn labrum in his right shoulder.
Ouch.
And yeah, it's not good. And I'll talk about that a little bit just now. So he's had this injury before during his senior year of college, and he might play through it because he did that in his senior year of college. However, the full scope of the damage is unknown at this time, but as some people who have had injury issues with their labrums can imagine, it affects your range of motion. Malcolm Floyd had this problem last year apparently. And the limitations to a tear vary just based on the severity of the tear and how the labrum is torn. And as I just said, it affects your range of motion. And that affects his catching radius. So if it's a severe torn labrum injury, then we've got a problem with Tyrell Williams going forward for the rest of the season. So there's that, and that's what I've got coming out of San Diego.
All right. Well, quick injury news for the Broncos. Our long snapper Casey Kreider is out with a calf injury. I know everyone loves the long snapper, so that's a pretty sad injury. But Billy Wynn is the backup for him. Billy Wynn has actually backed up Derek Wolfe while he's been injured on the D-line, which is, I guess, kind of interesting because normally tight ends will back up the long snapper. But yeah, Billy Wynn, he backed up the long snapper for his team in college, so he's had some experience. Should be all right with him for a little while. This is Kreider's first year, and he hasn't made a single mistake yet. In 10, I think he was in for 10 games this year. But Billy Wynn will suffice for now. Also, Jordan Norwood is expected to play with a bruised ego after being pushed by Aqib Talib in the game against the Chiefs.
Jesus. Oh my God.
I saw a post on Reddit that brought up a pretty interesting question. Can you get called for unsportsmanlike conduct when you do it to somebody on your own team? Because if Aqib Talib did that to a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, that would have been a flag, no question about it.
Yeah.
So, like, what are the rules there?
I think that's just good team building right there.
Builds character.
Because honestly,
I think that's just Talib being a
Jordan
dick.
Norwood. Now, every time, people call Talib a kind of a dick sometimes, but every time he does something outlandish, there's at least a little bit of justification there. And this time,
Yeah,
Jordan
but
Norwood,
he takes that justification and takes it a mile too
You
far.
can't justify the eye poke.
Okay. Not every time. You're right. But we don't know what was going on between them during that game. Anyway, Jordan Norwood, in my opinion, is the reason we lost this game. And somebody
spoiler.
needed to push him. Somebody needed to do something to him to get his mind in the game. But
I think it could have fairly easily been a tie if Kubiak just punted the ball away.
Well, we'll get into that discussion later.
mm,
Well, now that we got all the boring news out of the way, we can start getting into the super exciting games that we had over the weekend. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the Chargers game.
All right.
As the Chargers beat the Texans 21-13 in it was kind of a boring game. I watched this one.
It was pretty boring.
All right. I'll give you that. It's just, jeez, you didn't have to make it sound like that.
It doesn't live up to the other two games.
No, it doesn't. That's true. I'll give you that. Well, I'm sure Fraser's been waiting all of 5 hours to say that on air.
I planned that.
Yeah, I can tell. Either way, so as Fraser said, the Chargers did win this game 21-13. They improved to 5-6. The Texans dropped to 6-5. Positives. Overall, this was a good team effort, I think. There was a full team effort overall for this game. We obviously have a lot of injuries, and I just talked about more of them happening. So I think the team as a whole did a really good job in terms of stopping the Texans and doing what they needed to do to come away with the victory. The defense in particular did a very good job on defense with turnovers all day. 4 total takeaways, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble. And this is going to make Prather mad a little bit, I think, because he loves to go off about Marcus Peters being the greatest corner since sliced bread. And who is leading the league in interceptions right now, Prather?
Casey Hayward.
Thank you. Casey Hayward, the free agent acquisition
he still leads the league in takeaways.
okay, but who is the top-rated cornerback according to Pro Football Focus?
Not anyone from the Raiders.
The eye poker.
Hey,
the eye poker.
we have the top pass rusher. Okay.
Yeah. I think everyone in this division has a top pass rusher, so let's not.
Yeah, those
We're
are
not
a
talking about
commodity.
specifically ranked by PFF. those are kind of low hanging fruit in the AFC West.
It's a lot of low hanging fruit, on top of the fact that PFF only grades on subjective stats to begin with. Either way.
That's true.
So yeah, Hayward is now the league leader in interceptions with 6. He caught Brock Osweiler's first interception of the day. And a concern I had coming into the game was the effect on our run defense with the loss of Brandon Meeban a couple weeks ago with his bicep injury. And I talked about Damian Square having to fill his shoes, and he actually did a pretty good job this week. He and the defensive line led Lamar Miller to 57 rush yards and 19 carries, which is exactly 3 yards per carry, and that is the bread and butter of Houston's attack because Brock Osweiler is super inconsistent with the pass, as we could tell. And Damian Square managed to snag the first half sack of his career while he was at it. So that was a good, solid performance by Damian Square. Very happy to see that. And while we're on the subject of the defensive line, let's talk about scary white boy Joey Bosa. Let's talk about him. Very, very productive today. 7 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. The other half sack that he got with Damian Square, and 8 pressures overall in his first 35 pass rush snaps for the game. And on top of that, he has some additional stats that PFF went off on just all day. Like, what do you have? He had 38 total pressures in his first 7 games, which is the most any player has had in their first 7 games that PFF has talked about in the last 10 years. So he is playing at a monster rate right now. And that doesn't seem to that's not going to stop anytime soon. And PFF gave him the highest grade in the game with a rating of 89.1. So Joey Bosa continuing to play extremely well.
See, the most amazing
surprise.
The most amazing thing about that is that he didn't even go to training camp, right?
Right. He did not have training camp. Missed the first 4 games. It's honestly amazing. Like, we can talk about how much that was all he was. And I think I mentioned this before. Like, he even said that missing training camp might have been a good thing in a sense. Like, he wasn't worn down before the season. He came in fresh, and he already talked about how the NFL, in terms of his eyes, is a bit slower because college teams run more plays than the NFL does. So he feels fresher after every game than he does when he was at Ohio State. Can you believe that? So be scared. Be scared, AFC West. Be scared, NFL. Joey Bosa is a scary white boy. He's coming for you. And that's what I have on the defensive side of the ball. On the offense, Phillip Rivers was unflappable and looked very, very sharp today. Unlike his 4 interceptions in a quarter performance against Miami, he was 22 for 30 for 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception off of a tip pass from Tyrell Williams. It was deflected to Quentin Demps. And Phil had an overall quarterback rating of 116.3, and I know we like to gloss over quarterback ratings because those are kind of subjective, but it's kind of interesting to see because it's still the measure that we use today. And one of the other interesting facts for his quarterback rating was when Phillip was pressured, he had a quarterback rating of 145.3, which is very close to a perfect rating. So Phil did a very good job against the Houston pass rush on Sunday.
How was he when he was blitzed?
That's on the PFF thing. Let me check. Let me quickly pull that up.
I'm just trying to compare to Simeon because I've got Simeon's stats up right now, and I was just curious.
All right. Sure, I'll run through the other stuff while I look that up. Okay. And so for wide receivers, Dontrell Inman and Tyrell Williams are 2 reserve players who have seen massive time with the injuries to Keenan Allen and the other starters that we've had, have played very, very well this week. Inman had 119 yards and a touchdown catch, with the touchdown coming off a 52-yard reception. Tyrell Williams had 70 yards and a touchdown reception as well. The 3rd touchdown was caught by Hunter Henry. And Melvin Gordon had a very decent game in terms of his yards per carry. Didn't get the ball too much, not as much as he used to, but overall did pretty well. 17 carries for 70 yards, averaging 4.12 yards a carry. And let me see if I can jump into that.
If you can't find it, it's all right.
Oh, I got it. I don't like the way PFF arranges their website sometimes. I got it. Let me pull that up real fast. Where is it? It's down here. There it is. Okay. I'll get into the negatives in a second because I've got a few actually. But I do actually, surprisingly. Okay, when blitzed, that's not bad. He had a quarterback rating of 112.5.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah. He was blitzed 4 times and he completed all 4 passes for 44 yards. So the blitzes didn't seem to work against Phillip today, or on Sunday at least. The negatives for the game: special teams cannot recover an onside kick for their lives.
Oh, that was great. That was the greatest onside kick I've seen this year, honestly. I don't know if that's even on the Chargers special teams. That was perfect. That
was a very good onside kick by Nick Novak and the Texans special teams. I will give them that, but we can't cover any of them for our lives, apparently. So here's an interesting stat that I found out today, actually. So 45 onside kicks have been attempted in the NFL. 5 of them have been recovered by the kicking team. Those 5 onside kicks have been recovered against 2 teams. 2 of them have been recovered against the Chargers. The other 3 have been recovered against the Titans.
I think one of them was us against you guys.
Yes, it was.
That's
crazy.
crazy.
I actually want to talk about that. I actually want to talk about that for a little while later on, about how similar this game was compared to the color rush game we had against the Denver Broncos. The fourth quarter was extremely similar in the way it panned out. So, getting to that, some big plays got away from the defense early in the game. Craig Mager, who was a developmental third-round pick a couple years ago, I think last year, could not cover Will Fuller on a 33-yard bomb early in the game. I mean, that's just one particular miscue, but some big plays did get away from the defense. Antonio Gates surprisingly wasn't targeted the whole game. He went the entire game without a target, let alone a catch or anything else. So
he's not gonna get it.
He's got 5 games. He's got 5 games. I think Price is almost mad that Tony Gonzalez didn't get that record all with the Chiefs. He had to go to Atlanta to get it.
Well, it was baloney because the Falcons were out of the playoff hunt his last season, and the Chiefs were in the mix, and they didn't trade him. We would have given. They should have accepted like a bag of footballs for Tony Gonzalez, and we were willing to give up like an actual draft pick, and they didn't do it. It makes me mad.
So the salt is there. I was right.
I'm
okay,
salty,
well,
yes.
After something that happened like freaking 5 years ago, jeez. So, well, on that end, the play calling, if I can even continue to keep nitpicking about the play calling, we do play a bit of prevent play calling in the fourth quarter, and that happened again today with the lead that we had. And again, that ties into how similar this fourth quarter was against the Denver Color Rush fourth quarter, where we played prevent defense as well.
And prevent offense.
Yeah. Third down was not our money down. Apparently, we don't do third downs very well in this game, or we didn't do them well in this game. We were 4-11 on converting, which is 36%. Although, as a positive twist, our defense held the Texans to exactly that same stat, 4-11 on third down. And I want to get onto the NFL being the no fun league again. Can we just talk about this for a second? Like, I know we like to harp on officiating, but for real, like, were we called for a choreographed celebration penalty for Dwight Lowry lunging? Like, so here's what happened. So, Brock Osweiler's second interception of the day, he floated a pass to, like, well over C.J. Fedora was his head, and Dwight Lowry caught it, like, basically as a receiver, ran it back a little bit. After it went down, he celebrated a little bit with Jaleel Adai, and that wasn't caught on camera, and what we ended up hearing was an unsportsmanlike penalty for a choreographed celebration, and that was a 15-yard penalty that put us out of field goal range. So what we ended up hearing about it was literally like Dwight Lowry almost like lunging with the ball and it's like switching the ball back and forth between his hands, and Jaleel Adai kind of just jumped in on that, and that was it. And that was called for a 15-yard unsportsmanlike. How is that choreographed or unsportsmanlike in any way? I don't know.
I feel like it's something you gotta see. I can't really tell.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but that's what the description was. So I'm just gonna take that at face value and just call that kind of silly and stupid. And so
penalizing unsportsmanlike for dancing or anything like that should be taken away, honestly, unless they're actually delaying the game.
Yeah, I mean it's a gut call for those things, but I don't know. So I'm kind of bitter about that because that put us out of scoring range, but it's fine. We won the game. I don't care. And the penalties on the overall were not great. We had 10 penalties for 78 yards, and both teams were heavily penalized in the game, and we were lauded as one of the teams that were penalized the least all around the league. So this was an uncharacteristic performance for the Chargers as well as the Texans. And just as an outside, can I just throw in my CFL quip here? Like, I don't know how many people remember this, but on our very first podcast, we talked about me going to Canada because I had been in Canada for a few days right before that, and I talked about how I became a Calgary Stampeders fan because of the area I was at. I was in Calgary. So the Grey Cup happened this past weekend, and Calgary was in it because they were pretty much the best team in all of the CFL. They were 15-2-1 in their 18-game season, and they were slaughtering everybody. They lost, and they didn't just lose to any team. They lost to an Ottawa team that went under 500 in the regular season. They were 8-9-1, and they lost in overtime, 39-33. What?
I mean, any given, I don't know what day of the week.
It's usually Saturday. It's usually Saturday for them.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, it's just no, you can't. Yeah, I don't know. Like it pisses me off. I didn't see the game, but I heard the score, and I'm just extremely livid that a team as good as the Stampeders were this year lost to an underachieving team that lucked its way into the Grey Cup. So
back to the Chargers, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my small CFL rant. Calgary, get your shit together. But my other last thing was just like the comparison between the fourth quarter of this game versus the fourth quarter of the colorish game against the Broncos. Just like the way it panned out. Like we were up 21-10. We started playing prevent defense. The offense, the other team's offense moved down the field. They kick a field goal because they're going to try to save time for the onside kick. They get the onside kick, and then they move down the field a little bit, get a Hail Mary, and Dexter McCoy stops it. Dexter McCoy batted away the last pass in the Denver game, and McCoy got the third interception on the Hail Mary pass in this game. So there were an eerie amount of similarities between the colorish game against the Broncos and this game against the Texans.
What you're telling me is you guys are learning how to not lose it at the end of the game.
We are starting to do that, and that's hopefully a positive thing going forward.
Baby steps.
I'm just going to cross my fingers for that one. That's what I've got coming out of San Diego. That's our game. 21-13 Chargers win.
All right. Let's go to the next awesome game. Well, I guess the first awesome game of the week.
The first awesome game, yeah.
Raiders 35, Panthers 32 in a thriller. This would have been the game of the week if it wasn't for the last game we're going to talk about. But Tyler,
seriously, way to just take the spotlight, dude. Like, what the hell? that game should have been a tie. First off, I feel like it should be a dead ball if it hits the uprights. But we'll talk about that later. Sunday's game in the afternoon for us on the West Coast got off to a hot start. The defense looked playoff caliber for the first time since last year, and the offense was clicking like always. They headed into halftime with a 24-7 lead, only allowing Cam to move the ball on one drive that was gifted after an extra set of downs on a suspect roughing the passer penalty. And, whatever. I'll just let that go. So now that fast start got off to a quick collapse as soon as Carr left the field with a 14-point swing resulting from Carr's injury, and a total of 25 points scored by the Panthers in I think around 8 minutes. So losing Carr for a drive literally sucked the life out of this team, and the defense went to absolute crap. But credit where credit is due. You have to give it to Scam Newton for being able to capitalize on a huge momentum swing.
Jesus.
That's not like a dig at Cam. Like, I have a friend who I would always play in Madden, and he would always pick the Panthers in like 2014 because he loved playing as quote unquote Scam Newton, and his favorite person to throw to was Greg Olsen. So I just kind of call him Scam Newton all the time now, just because he kind of accepted that in me. But anyway, the former MVP was going deep all day, and he finally started to connect once our team had lost its hope. The struggles of Carolina's team is not really on his shoulders. Their offensive line is a mess right now. The receivers, sans Greg Olsen, seem to only be able to run the 9 route, and instead of rallying in the last minute of the game, they seem to show a Charger-like collapse.
Hey now.
So,
hey now, come on. No need to go there.
Now, thanks to the Raiders rallying in the last minutes, I can say something I haven't really said as a football fan as long as I can remember, because I'm only 22. The Raiders have clinched a winning season, guys.
Boo.
Nobody's happy about that.
The last time since Rich Gannon and John Gruden.
Yeah, 14 years since the 2002 Super Bowl, which resulted in the second most heartbreaking party to take place.
Since before Twitter existed.
Yes.
Okay, what's the first most heartbreaking
I'm
thing?
not going to get into that because it's really depressing, and I don't want to, bring down the whole podcast.
Okay.
So, now on to the negatives of this game. Although this was a close game against a presumed bad team, there weren't really many negatives to point at. A major one was the failure of the single high defense being beat constantly deep. Nelson and Joseph are never really able to get to the ball in time to assist our corners, and it leads to them being completely smoked for a touchdown. The touchdown pass again should have had help over the top, but both safeties stayed in the box, even though the Panthers were down and hadn't run really much all day. There was even one to him earlier that he dropped and Hayden forced out of his arms. And then the deep touchdown to Kelvin Benjamin was caught on Sean Smith, but you can't really put the blame on him. He literally did everything you want on the play. He trailed hip to hip. He watched the receiver, found the ball, high-pointed it, but the fact that the safety on the play trailed so late allowed Benjamin to post between Smith and the end zone and the pylon and use his slight height advantage to get to the ball first. If the safety is there, Benjamin does not make that catch.
Who was the safety?
I think it was Nelson coming over. I have to rewatch it, but
he's been bad all year, hasn't he? Or is he?
He actually had a decent game, minus like one play. Honestly, I think that was his one bad play this game. The other time, it was Joseph coming over or staying in the box with Ginn when he got fooled on the quick screen. He should have been deep, and then Ginn beats Carey deep for like 70 yards.
I've defended Sean Smith a lot this year because every time it gets burned, it seems because Reggie Nelson isn't where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, it literally is. Reggie Nelson is never where he should be, and even when he knows where he should be, he's too slow to get to where he should be.
Reggie Nelson is a linebacker that's masquerading as a safety. That's what we've known for years at this point. I feel like that's why Cincinnati just said, "No, it's fine. You can go to Oakland."
Well, they wanted him back. They actually tried to get him, but we just paid him a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to leave Cincy too. So like. I feel like he saw that collapse coming.
Oh,
but, well. Let's not pile on the cats over there. So I feel like something has got to give with this secondary scheme if they really want to take the playoff push seriously, because getting beat deep is like the number one way to kill a team. So other than the only other negative other than getting beat deep was just the total collapse after Carr left the game. Like literally the wind was taken out of our sails. This team went from the 9-2 badass Raiders to the 0-12 Cleveland Browns in like 20 seconds. Honestly, into the third, like right out of halftime, they turned into the Cleveland Browns. It was shocking.
You guys and the Lions are basically the Browns without a quarterback, or with a quarterback.
Well, I mean, we have more weapons than the Browns on offense.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
We have a better offensive line.
Corey Coleman, they're pretty good too.
Are you forgetting we dropped Pryor?
Well,
he was a quarterback.
That's true.
Yeah, but he was trying to make the transition, and we were like, nah, we don't need you. But anyway, if things are going to happen in this league, you can't really rely on one single player to play God each and every week if you want to win. I mean, without Carr, we gave up so many points. And it's terrifying to imagine what would happen if, God forbid, a serious injury situation actually occurred. Which leads me to my next point.
I don't know. I still pray to Von Miller every night. So.
Jeez.
I feel like your defense will still be decent without Von Miller. I mean, DeMarcus Ware still puts pressure. Shane Ray's a decent pass rusher. You still have the top secondary. Like, you could lose Vaughn and still be viable.
Yeah.
We lose Carr, and we're the Browns. I'm, like, not kidding. This McGloin is the worst quarterback I have ever seen take a snap under center. And I watched Jamarcus Russell for 3 years.
And this is coming from Penn State 11 Tyler as well.
Yes, I hate McGloin. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, so first down, they run the ball. Second down, I don't remember what they did. But anyways, 3rd and 2, false start. 3rd and 7. I blame the false start on McGloin too because he's terrible at freaking hard count. Anyway, 3rd and 7, he drops back to pass. It's a full house blitz by the Panthers because they know, this short, scrawny quarterback who's been in the league for like 3 or 4 years that never went in the weight room is back there not knowing what he's doing because he just came in the freaking 3rd quarter. He's standing back there. He sees an open receiver. It's a tight window. He goes for the fake. He pump fakes a full house blitz and then barely gets the ball off as Thomas Davis literally smacks the hell out of him. Honestly, I don't see how anybody defends this guy. And honestly, that was a fumble. They called it an incomplete pass, but he fumbled the ball. So,
oh my God.
Carr is the MVP of this league. I can't think of a team in this league that relies on a single player as much as the Raiders rely on Carr. You could argue the Lions maybe.
I can get behind that because he's making the Raiders look good. So anyone who
he's
can
making
do
them
that,
look damn near great. Honestly, at this point,
anyone who can do that
they're
deserves
9-2. Yeah, he's the only reason they're 9-2. Him alone. We saw that when he left the game. I mean, like Brady, the Pats without Brady were 3-1. Without Carr, the Raiders would be sitting next to the Browns wondering what happened this offseason. If he's not your number one MVP pick, you're either blind, being a homer, or just a hater. And there's no other reason, and I don't want to hear it. But moving on, some positives. Clive Walford is the tight end. I think he's second-year player. Starting to look like the player we actually hope he'd look like this offseason. He's improved his blocking immensely. I've talked about it before all season. But this game, he finally actually started to make the tough catches and clutch receptions. Instead of the drops we've seen all year, I've kind of been disappointed with that. So hopefully he could keep it up. In a press conference after the game, he talked about just him staying after working with Carr and working with the jugs machine, just catching all the time. So maybe he's finally getting it. Next on the list, Mac officially confiscated the ownership of the Dab. He and Bruce Irvin terrorized Cam and Jonathan Stewart all day, recording 6 tackles, a sack, an interception, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and a touchdown. That is the definition of a beast. He's the first player to do that since Charles Woodson did it with the Packers in 2009, and I believe that was their Super Bowl run. You could fact check me on that.
Pretty sure it was.
But yeah, that was a pretty exciting game. Raiders come back with a Skywalker car and lead it to a 35-32 victory.
Sweet. Well, now let's get into the game of the year as the Broncos. I'm throwing it out right now. I know it's only week 12.
No, honestly, it probably is the game of the year. That game was freaking crazy.
As the Chiefs somehow, some way defeat the Broncos 30-27 in overtime.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question first before you guys get into this?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Uh-huh.
How does a defensive matchup turn into a 30-27 game?
I don't know. I
Magic.
really don't know.
This game started off with like 6 sacks on both sides. Like,
to Prather's
what the hell
point,
did this just turned into?
To Prather's point, I'm gonna quote a guy on the NFL subreddit in favor of the idea that this is the game of the year, because he said that somehow it had a defensive showcase, a kicking battle, a QB duel, a game-winning comeback, and a game winner that banks off the uprights and in. It was like a frickin' movie, but he didn't use frickin'. He used a different word there. But
you had Alex Smith and Trevor Siemian looking like Manning versus Brady. Like, I don't understand what exactly.
The Game Manager Bowl.
I don't know. Simeon did more than manage. Simeon was.
They weren't game managers that game. Neither of them played like game managers.
Simeon started out looking like Alex Smith, and then in the second half, he looked like Russell Wilson. But
that's another thing. He actually started to run again. That was shocking.
He started doing some fancy stuff, especially that when Justin Houston blitzed. What was it, in like the third quarter, and he ran all the way across the field and then all the way back to throw a touchdown to Jordan Taylor.
Yeah, that was the Broncos' first touchdown early in the third quarter.
Yeah, that was brilliant. But we're seeing flashes of what he could possibly be in the future, and I honestly hope he is our quarterback of the future. Lynch, there's still some hope that he could be, but so far Simeon, I think, has proven that he deserves a starting job at least somewhere, and I hope it's with us. But I guess, do you want me to start this off, Prather?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do the Broncos' point of view, and then
Okay, well, obviously, if you watch the game, we lost. And
no,
yeah,
you don't
ouch.
say.
Yeah, ouch. It hurt, and I hate to admit it because we definitely should have won, in my opinion. And I think the leading culprit is Jordan Norwood, who muffed 2 punts on the night, and that's exactly why Aqib Talib decided it was a good idea to shove him on camera in front of the world. But anyway, those 2 muffed punts, one led to a safety. The game was 0-0 through the first quarter, and that led directly to a safety when Justin Houston broke through the line. Not even on a blitz; it was just a regular play. I don't even think it was I'm not sure if it was even designed. I think he just broke through, and it immediately afterwards, it took 12 seconds, and they had 9 points on the board after we kicked it back to Tyreek Hill, and he ran it back for a touchdown. And oh my God, Tyreek Hill! Don't get me started on this guy. Holy shit!
Oh, Prather will start in a minute.
He is.
That's what his pregnant girlfriend said.
It's almost unfair how fast this guy is. Anyway, Jordan Norwood, he gave them that safety. Pretty much, he set us up in the worst possible position there, and then later on he gave the Chiefs the ball again when he muffed the punt, and the Chiefs recovered. So I think he's the leading culprit for this type of game. Comes down to who makes the most mistakes, and those were the two big ones that we made. And on Kubiak's decision to kick the field goal in the end there, 62 yards, a lot of people gave him grief for that. I think it was a good decision. So you can argue that a bunch of different ways. Maybe he could have tried to go for it on fourth down. Maybe he could have punted it and gone for the tie. But, we got rid of John Fox because we wanted somebody who was going to try and win. We're not going to go out there trying to tie, So I think it was a good decision to go for it. It's just too bad, that Brandon McManus doesn't have the experience that Prater and Elam that we've had before have with those long kicks. But it was a good decision, bad situation. That's my opinion on that one. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about that one.
I agree. I like the call with the kick.
Okay.
Punting was definitely the wrong decision. I mean, maybe you go for it on 4th and 10. Both defenses were pretty tired at that point.
Yeah, and we could hardly even convert on 3rd down, let alone 4th and 10. All season long, we've been one of the worst teams on 3rd down at all. So I just anyway, Simeon in the second half, after the defensive showcase of the year on both sides, he came out slinging, and he threw a couple huge bombs to Emmanuel Sanders over who was it? Gaines? What was his first name? I forget. Your cornerback. Philip Gaines. Yeah, he was targeting Philip Gaines on 3 different shots deep. One to Benny Fowler, 2 to Emmanuel Sanders, and that got us going. And we finally we engineered a comeback there, and it was looking like we were going to take the game. And obviously that's not how it turned out, but that was after we had Ty Sembrilo in at right tackle. This is our biggest position of weakness all year long, is right tackle. I think it was like a week ago we benched Donald Stevenson for Sembrilo, and those two I think are rated in the bottom 3 right tackles in the entire league right now by Pro Football Focus. So we've been struggling, but when Stevenson came back in, he actually played a lot better than he has been. And I think him getting benched has seemed to light a fire under his ass a little bit. And I hope that he continues to play as well as he was at the end of that game, because otherwise we're going to need to draft a tackle next year, because we're really not doing so great there. Matt Paradis has been fantastic all year. It's easy to argue that he's the best center in the league at this point. And I think Max Garcia has improved a lot since last year. He's gotten a lot of flack over the last couple of years, but he was really good in this game. And Okung, he's up and down, but he was all right in this game. Really, it was all on the right tackle position. And Justin Houston, he's just another Von Miller out there, so it's hard to stop him anyway. And does he always line up on the left side, or?
Yeah, yes, typically.
So really, maybe it's not. I mean, you could argue that it is our right tackle position that sucks just based on the history of the season, but Justin Houston coming out pretty fresh and, being as good as he is, that's a hard person to stop. But otherwise, Devontae Booker wasn't nearly as good as we need him to be, except when catching the ball. He had some good catches and was able to juke some people on the field and make some good gains there, but he's still averaging only 3 or 3.5 yards per carry. So I think we really need CJ Anderson back. And I think that'll make a huge difference once we finally get him back. And Capri Bibbs wasn't very good either. But AJ Derby, the tight end that we got from the Patriots, is actually turning out to be a really great addition, which is crazy because how often do you get a good deal out of a trade with New England? But he was catching some balls over the top in a spot, in a position where, you know, we haven't had a lot of production, and it's good for Trevor Siemian. He's been struggling at throwing it in between the what would you say, the cross? I can't even think of the word right now. Anyway, in the middle of the field. And so it was good to have somebody actually out there making some plays. And also, I think it'll be good to get Andy Janovich healthy again, because he's been great, even though he has a broken hand. And did you guys see the last game? I mean, I didn't see in this game if he caught any passes, but he caught a pass with one hand. He has a freaking club on one hand, and he caught a pass in the last game with one hand. I don't even know why we even thought to throw it to him, but he's going to be a great piece of our offense once he gets healthy. So it sucked that he's not completely healthy. I think with all those things going for us, if we had CJ, if we had Andy Janovich healthy, I think we would have I think it would have been a shoo-in for us. And if Jordan frickin' Norwood didn't drop those 2 punts. But boy, do we miss Jason Elam. I'll just say that. I'll leave it there.
Yes, indeed. From the Chiefs side, I mean, this game was so physical on both sides. Chris Collinsworth made a comment during the game, which I agree with. It didn't feel like like an offense going against a defense. It felt like both defenses trying to one-up each other during that game. These are two very prideful units, and you know they know they're playing on national TV, and it was a statement game for both of them. Justin Houston, as you said, was huge. He's one of the premier players on defense in the league, and a lot of more casual fans have, I guess, forgotten about him because he's been injured so much recently. But I mean, that was good for him to come out there on national TV and show everybody that he's still got it. Alex Smith, he was okay. He avoided the big mistake. He took what the defense gave him, and for 3/4 of that game, the defense didn't give him hardly anything. Denver's defense was really good, and then at the fourth quarter, down by 8, Chiefs need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to win. Alex Smith drives all the way down the field in a miraculous 13-play drive for 75 yards with no timeouts in under 3 minutes. And I said he took what the defense gave him, and that was true on this drive. The defense gave him as much space as he wanted. And I kind of poop on Alex Smith a lot, but if there's one thing he does really well, it's he shreds prevent defense because he makes the right decisions. He can get the ball out quickly when nobody's kind of covering those underneath routes, and our receivers are good enough at getting yards after the catch to eat up that field pretty quick. There was a 4th down play, the 4th and 10 on that drive, where the Broncos brought a lot of pressure, but they didn't do tight man-to-man coverage on the outside, and nobody was covering Tyreek Hill, and so he caught it and was able to just walk out of bounds for the first down. So the defensive play calling on the Broncos part towards the end of that game, prevent defense loses games, and I think it lost another one right there for Denver. But he was solid. Alex Smith was solid. Tyreek Hill is the fastest player in the NFL, and he was the first player since Gale Sayers in 1965 to have a kick return, a receiving, and a rushing touchdown all in the same game. So he was very good. And then we have Cairo Santos, who after Denver misses the field goal in overtime, we get the ball back on inside Denver territory, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And Cairo Santos, his kicks are almost always ugly, and this was one of the ugliest kicks I've ever seen that made it, as every Chiefs fan hearts sank as that kick came off his foot just to have it bang off the inside of the crossbar and go in. I mean, just what a finish of that game.
I threw up.
It was crazy. I just don't think you can top that game.
I want to comment on that game tying drive that you were talking about. I mean, it was amazing, obviously, but that touchdown where his knee was down, but he didn't quite have possession yet.
Oh yeah, that was
and
crazy.
Then he fell into the end zone. Oh my god! So
Tyreek Hill catches the game tying touchdown there, and his knee is down, and the ball is not across the plane when he, I guess, first gets the ball, because he didn't secure it until he crossed the goal line. It ended up being a touchdown. So the stupid catch rule actually benefited us in that scenario.
The first team to ever have that work in their favor, I think I've ever seen.
Pretty much. That was insane. And then the 2-point conversion, we threw it to Demetrius Harris, who drops literally everything. Like, I'm surprised he held on to that. If he would have dropped that pass, we would be rioting right now.
Even the announcers
to have
were
Alex Smith cap off that amazing drive, just to have Demetrius Harris drop the ball in the 2-point conversion. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, even the announcers were like, they threw it to him of all people.
Yeah, that was nuts. But
they never expected.
But
exactly.
Also, I was gonna comment just because Sumant talked about quarterback rating earlier.
Yeah.
It was Phillip Rivers was like a 145 under pressure. Correct.
When blitzed, under pressure it was like 112.
Oh, I thought it was 112 when blitzed. I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Because I asked you what when blitzed was, and it was still high, but it wasn't quite as much as Simeon's, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. But
yeah.
Trevor Simeon had a 125 in this game overall, but he had a 137.5 when blitzed, which is really incredible because he seems to play better
really
under pressure. Or when just all-out blitzes are coming at him, he can see the coverage and make the decision. And I think that's one of those intangibles that, you can't really scout a quarterback for. And when you see it in somebody, he doesn't have maybe the physical talent that Lynch does, but that's something that, you can't look over. And I think
that's a game film thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know about much of his games at Northwestern, but if he was doing that on a routine basis, then I suppose that's enough reason to say he could have done it. But
right, but the NFL is always going to be a little different, I guess, too.
Yeah, it's a step up.
Yeah.
Not bad for a 7th-round pick out of Northwestern.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just on that thing with quarterback ratings, you're right. I think it was a 112 on the blitz, 145 when pressured.
Right.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. He was Simeon was 118 under pressure. But
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anybody didn't watch that game and is on the fence about maybe getting NFL Game Pass, this game is worth it. Absolutely. So, I guess with that in the rearview mirror, let's go ahead and start previewing Week 13 coming up. So the first game, Chiefs at Falcons in the Sunday early game. We just talked about the game against the Broncos. It was such a physical game. I'm not sure if the Chiefs defense is going to have enough energy to chase around Julio Jones, Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman, and Taylor Gabriel for 4 quarters. So I think we're going to give up some points, and our offense needs to step up and come to play. Jeremy Macklin's still questionable. Not sure if we're going to have him. I don't know how we're going to fare. The matchup I'm most curious to watch is Justin Houston against Ryan Schrader. It's pretty well documented that the Broncos have been getting the worst play in the NFL from the right tackle position. This week, Justin Houston's going against one of the best right tackles in the league, so it'll be a good one-on-one matchup for him. Is he truly 100%, or did he just take advantage of one of the weakest position groups in the NFL? I'm really happy we got the win against Denver, because if we would have lost that game, this game would have been a must-win scenario for us. But now we can sort of afford to drop this game and be okay, which is good because I'm going to predict us to lose this game. Falcons offense just too high-powered. A lot of our players are going to be in the ice bath after that bloodbath against Denver. I just can't see us recouping, going all the way out east and containing that offense. So I think we're gonna lose 24-17.
All right.
I'll go on this one, and I'm also predicting the Chiefs to lose as well, but not in an untenable way. I think the Chiefs can actually win this game, and the way I think you combat Ryan Schrader is basically looking at Joey Bosa's footage. So we played the Falcons a few weeks ago. We obviously came back to beat them, and if anything else, I'd actually honestly suggest the Chiefs, if they want to beat the Falcons, to look at least some of the footage from the Chargers game. The way Joey Bosa managed to get past Ryan Schrader and much of the Atlanta offensive line is almost just an intangible thing on his own. It's basically a really good first step. One of the sacks, or one of the heavy pressures, I'm forgetting if it was a sack, that Bosa managed to record on Matt Ryan, was him just basically beating Schrader so badly off the line of scrimmage that Schrader just did not, just twirled around and just didn't have a hand on him at all. So, probably the best way to honestly combat Ryan Schrader is to make sure he doesn't grab you. If Justin Houston has a really good, jump off the snap, then he's got a really good chance at possibly making a good play or two in the backfield. So that's probably one of the bigger ways the Chiefs defense can attempt to contain Matt Ryan and the Falcons offense. But they have so many weapons, you have to actually be able to contain all of them. And even for our game, I'm not sure how we managed to do it. It's been so long now that I can't remember how we did it, but we did just enough to win the game. And if the Chiefs want to win this game, they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to stop Matt Ryan in his tracks, because it's going to force him on the ground. And the Chiefs' defensive line, I think, will be more than enough to stop the ground game. So it's getting to Matt Ryan and getting him early, getting him often. But I don't think that's going to happen. On the other side, the Falcons' defense isn't as bad as I think people make them out to be. They have some pretty decent players on all areas, in the secondary, in the linebacking core, in the front set and the front four. But they are not a cohesive team yet as a defensive unit, and there's still a lot of gaps that I think can be taken advantage of. But I think the strength of that team is the defensive line with Rashid Hagman anchoring that front, and the corners with Robert Alford and Desmond Trufant. I'm actually not sure if one of them got injured. I'll have to check that again, but they had a pretty decent secondary when we played them as well. So I think there's a chance the Chiefs can win this game. I think there's a lot of things the Chiefs can do to win this game. There's matchups they can take advantage of, but there's so much you have to account for with the Falcons, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think Atlanta wins, and I'm going to call this a bit more of a shootout. I'm going to call this one a 28-20 game.
All right, I'm going to hop right in after that. I think it's going to start to be a shootout, but the Chiefs won't be able to keep up, just mainly because of some of the things that Prather already mentioned. Just them kind of coming off. They were hitting in that Broncos game.
Oh, every single play ended with somebody getting laid out. It was
a smack. You could hear every pad crunching under every hit. So I feel like the ice baths are full in the Chiefs facility, and they have to travel to Atlanta to play a 10 o'clock game. Not that far for the Chiefs, but still, you're going to someplace. They're not playing at home. It's 2 back-to-back weeks playing tough teams in their houses. I feel like the Falcons kind of they got back on track a little bit against the Cardinals, and they really kind of show that against the Chiefs. I'm going 35-10.
Okay. Well, I'll quickly jump in here. I feel like you guys covered everything, but I'm going to go with a Falcons win as well. Sorry, Chiefs, but you guys just beat us, so I'm not going to be nice. I think they're probably going to cover Julio Jones just because everyone tries to, and then someone like Mohamed Sanu or Taylor Gabriel is going to go out there and catch it over Phillip Gaines, just like what we were doing. And I think, their run defense is a lot better than their passing defense, too, on the Falcon side. So I think it'll probably be high scoring, or maybe about as high scoring as our game was against you guys, but I think they'll have a little bit better lead. So let's say 35-28 Falcons.
Hey, our score. That's what they put on us.
All right.
All right, well, the next game, Broncos at Jaguars in the Sunday early game. Can that shaky Broncos defense contain Blake Bortles?
Yeah, that unstoppable force against the movable object, I guess. Or, oh wait, the other way around. Yeah, I think we're gonna be all right. After that
How
game,
can you tell?
yeah, well,
I mean, the last person to say that was Prather talking about the Bucks, and that didn't really end too well for them.
Well, I feel a little bit better now that the Bucks beat the Seahawks. I think they're not a bad team.
Yeah, they're decent.
and they have Jameis Winston. Wow.
While the Jags have Blake freaking Bortles.
Mutant Ninja Bortles over there. I don't know. I think we might kill him, but I hope we don't, because
Just don't end his
I don't
career.
hate him that much. I don't.
Give him another season at least. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the Broncos. We have all our starters back except for our long snapper, and they're probably going to be sore after this game, like Prather said. But I think we're going to go out there, and the Jags. They're in last place with the worst turnover margin of like -15. So I'm thinking this is going to be a game where we get back in our true form of the defense doing all the work, and they're gonna. I'm betting we'll see at least one defensive score on a turnover. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Von Miller strip sacking, and somebody else is gonna take it back because he never seems to find the ball after he pulls it out of the QB's hand. It's always like Derek Wolfe or Shane Ray, but I think that's gonna happen at some point, and maybe you'll see Aqib Talib pick him off at one point. But Bortles, he's going to be pressured into throwing even more picks than usual, so we might see multiple turnovers. But their defense is underrated, so I think we're going to have trouble moving the ball against them through the air. And it's going to be interesting to see the matchup between Jalen Ramsey, Prince Amukamara, and their other guy. Was it Colvin?
Aaron Colvin.
Yeah, versus our wide receivers. And besides that matchup, Von Miller versus their right and left tackle will be interesting to watch because he does line up on both sides, depending on the formation. And also Malik Jackson coming back against his former team is going to be an interesting storyline, something to watch. I don't think he's as good as he was with us. I think our defense made him better than he actually is. But I haven't really been watching Jags. So. Yeah.
No, I think so too, and that's one of the biggest things that I think was a warning for Jacksonville when they signed him was just like you signed him to a big contract, but it's possibly the fact that the Denver defense was just so good as a unit that a lot of individuals were propped up in a sense of how good they were. And Malik Jackson, I think, actually probably became a victim of that sort of circumstance.
Right.
Well, I don't really know if it's that exact circumstance. I feel like it's just going to Jacksonville and then kind of sucking, kind of mess with his head. I feel like his mind's just not in it. With the Broncos, they were just the perennial contender and they were the top team beating everybody.
Our culture is a winning culture, that's for sure. I don't know that
the Jags is a losing culture. So,
but
that does have a huge impact on players.
It does.
Play.
It does. I agree with that.
It'll be interesting to see though how he comes back because he's probably going to want to prove himself a little bit. Against his former team, even though he probably doesn't have too much bad blood because they gave him a Super Bowl
he chose
ring.
the left. Yeah.
But
score
21 to 10 yards.
Don't.
All right. But really,
I'll go.
just 10 yards.
Just please don't kill Blake, man. I feel like he's a good guy.
And we'll do our best.
I think kind of like what you said, the defense carries this victory just because the offense is so tired from literally putting up 27 points on the Chiefs, and playing 5 quarters. They played it in the exact 5 quarters because that game went to the last seconds of overtime. I want my bold prediction to be kind of like yours, but the points off of a turnover aren't going to be Von Miller strip sack return for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. It's going to be because Blake Bortles likes to throw picks off of their receivers' feet.
Yeah,
he's going to throw it off of Allen Robinson's foot, and it's going to bounce into Chris Harris Jr.'s hands, and he's going to take it back 30 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah, I can see that too.
So I'm going to go with Broncos 27. Jags 3.
Okay.
I'm going to go Broncos 17, Jags nothing. The Bortles
Ooh,
Okay.
doesn't even get anything on the board because he sucks.
All right.
How many yards? 10?
How many yards for Bortles?
10.
He'll have 20 passing yards and about 80 rushing yards.
See, but you gotta include the yards lost to sacks. Too.
Okay, he'll have minus 10 passing yards.
Jeez. Even he didn't if we're gonna go into fantasy, even he didn't do too badly last week. He had 21 points, but
Yeah.
Because
Let's be
he
realistic.
can't pass the ball anymore, and he's just running because he knows he can't make any throws.
yeah.
Plus,
well,
who did they play? Who were they playing? The Texans and the Bills?
Bills, yeah.
Jacksonville? I don't know.
They played Buffalo
I
last.
don't know.
Yeah,
their
they
defense
played
is-
Buffalo and Houston. I don't know if that's like a terrible fantasy matchup, honestly.
That sounds like a fantasy matchup he wouldn't want, but he put up more points than Phillip did. That's fine. Anyway, my prediction. My prediction is, I'm picking the Broncos to win this one too. I don't see how Jacksonville even comes close to winning this game. There's a lot of holes Jacksonville needs to figure out. I don't know.
And we can't.
I don't know
lose.
what they can.
We can't.
I really don't think you can. I don't like. I'll talk about in a little bit about the Bucks beating the Seahawks, but because we're playing the Bucks next week. But that seemed more plausible in many ways than the inconsistent offense of the Jaguars and the middling defense that they've got going against the defending Super Bowl champions, who are coming off of maybe a physical game, but they're definitely still a better team. So
Yeah.
I don't see Jacksonville having much of a shot here. I'm
At
going.
this point,
yeah.
the Broncos losing to them would be worse, just because matchup-wise, the Broncos match up so well with them.
Yeah, they
would
do.
be worse than losing to the Browns. honestly, at this
Absolutely.
point.
Absolutely. Actually, yeah, no, that's a good point. I agree with that. So my score is going to be Denver 21, Jacksonville 6. I'm calling them 2 field goals. That's it. End of the game.
All right, we pick a sweep for the Broncos. Next game, Bills at Raiders. A surprisingly frisky Bills team.
Yeah, they are frisky. They like the feet.
A team trying to get to the playoffs. Raiders, can you kill them, please?
I really want us to kill them, mainly because I hate the Ryan family. I hate both Ryan brothers, and especially Rex. I actually like the Bills, but I could never root for them because they hired Rex Ryan. I think he's an asshole who's too distracted by the media hot takes and players' feet to actually coach his team.
Jesus.
He's a cocky prick who gets overrated by the East Coast media. I think he should be fired immediately, honestly. Just get rid of him and freaking Rob, whatever the hell's going on. They talk about freaking Mark Davis's hair. Look at Rob Ryan's hair, okay? Like, please stop. Okay, so now that my Rex hate manifesto is over, some players I'm worried about in this game that list starts with LaShawn McCoy. I think he is playing this week, if I'm correct. I think he's had some injury problems like most star players do, but he's one of those dangerous players who's always liable to take it all the way. And this is important, especially if Perry Riley Jr., who didn't play Sunday, is still out. Seeing how that big hole in the middle led to a huge Jonathan Stewart run in the first quarter of our game against the Panthers. So next, we need to limit the arm and the legs of Tyrod Taylor. I've been a big fan of this guy since he was backup for Flacco in Baltimore. And these past couple of years, he's started to turn it on for Buffalo. He's the main reason they're kind of like a sneaky team that you never really expect, but could beat literally anybody any week. He can beat you on the ground and through the air because, unlike most running quarterbacks, he actually can throw the ball. So they need to spy him and force him to stay in the pocket. And the secondary definitely needs to keep everything in front of them because this guy is so hot right now. And mainly, I think after last week, that's because Sammy Watkins is actually back. What makes me worry even more is Sammy Watkins was basically Amari Cooper before Amari Cooper was Amari Cooper. So, he's just a great all-around receiver. The only thing he's really dealt with is injuries that have kept him off the field. And I think he's a great matchup with Emerson if he's good to go, or else we could have Sean Smith having troubles with him this Sunday. I think he's a little bit too fast for Smith. It's really arguable because Watkins is still kind of a big body receiver, but he's deceptively quick is the problem. Now, if we see the defense we saw in the first half of the game versus Carolina, this game will probably be a cakewalk. But the second half defense could make its ugly freaking head appear out of nowhere and make this one a close game or even an upset. So hopefully this team can capitalize on the growth its defense has shown and the momentum they're gaining down, or to slow down the Bills. I mean, they've been the number 10 ranked defense in the past 6 games, but they're number 29th because of the fact that they sucked before that. A lot of that question mark for the defense relies on whether or not DJ Hayden and or David Amerson plays. I know people like to hate on Hayden because, he hasn't really lived up to his first round status so far, but they are 2 crucial players in the secondary, and especially when Antonio Hamilton stepped in for Hayden, he literally, the first play he played, they went deep to Kevin Benjamin. That was the touchdown. Hamilton gave up a touchdown, but Cam just didn't see him. Hamilton literally slipped 5 yards off the route and had his man running wide open to the end zone, but Cam decided to test Benjamin, who caught the ball anyway. So I don't have faith in the backups because this secondary is way too thin. They're not even that good when they're fully healthy. So we need them to step up and all be on the field. So this is a must-win game because it would give us the edge over the Patriots if it comes down to tiebreakers. We are tied for record at the moment, and a win against the Bills when they have their shutout at home to the Bills would be very helpful going forward. And more importantly, it would be a much-needed W going into a short week where we have to travel in the division to Kansas City on Thursday night, which we'll get to next week. But I feel like we could win this game. Khalil Mack, his first game where he really went off was against Buffalo in his rookie season. I feel like he has a repeat performance. And I think this is a defense-dominated game with the Raiders' offense just kind of trolling along. I say we win this one 21-7.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I also like Tyrod Taylor a lot, and I like Sammy Watkins a lot. Watkins looks healthy, and I don't trust your defense against the deep ball, and Tyrod Taylor has a really nice deep ball. So I think he gives your defense problems. The Rex Ryan has done some magic with the Bills' defense, given how many injuries they've had. Their defense has been surprisingly good. I think
he should probably stick to be a defensive coordinator because he sucks as a head coach.
This season feels like some Rex Ryan magic to me. So I'm riding the Bills train all the way to a 21-14 victory.
Dang.
All right. So
wow. You're picking the Raiders offense to only score 14 against that Bills secondary.
I
they have some decent players.
I think Gilmore and Darby get it together.
Decent, but I mean, like you're comparing decent to elite at this point.
Also, I mean, let's not forget that defenses are more than just a couple of players in the secondary. The Bills have a surprisingly strong front seven.
Against the best offensive line, second best offensive line in football. I mean, we could go back and forth with this all day, man.
True, I know, I get that, but I mean, you have to take that into account. If it happens, it happens.
True.
And if it doesn't, I mean, there you go. Then you prove your point. But we have to take them into account. They have one of the league's top sack leaders in Lorenzo Alexander right now as well. Like Kyle Williams and company on the defensive line are usually some of the best.
I think the Raiders
suck. Amen. But no, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be a much harder test than I think you're making it out to be. And I do think they've got a really good shot at winning this game. I'm going to call the Raiders still because the Raiders overall, I think, have a few, I think their offense is better in terms of the way it's playing and their skill players, but really it's tough because it's a close matchup between both teams. I think both teams have the same strengths and weaknesses. It's interesting. So I'm calling the Raiders on a toss-up. I'm going to say it's going to be a 24-21 game. Last second field goal wins it.
Ooh, very believable.
What was that score again?
24-21.
24-21.
Yeah.
Okay.
Raiders win.
Are you taking all these down?
Yes, I'm writing it down.
All right, well, I'm going to be quick on this one. I'm going to call it for the Bills. And I'm going to say
Shocker.
35-24 Bills.
Ooh.
And my reasoning is that, well, first off, the Bills are better than the Panthers, for sure, right now, at least. And I think Derek Carr's finger will hurt and I think we will see other Carr.
Now that's a reason.
And
The logic of that one.
Hard-hitting analysis.
The logic.
And I also think LaShawn McCoy will have a hell of a game, and that'll set up for some Sammy Watkins action.
I do think LaShawn McCoy will have a good game.
Yep.
I just don't think that the Bills will be smart enough to capitalize on that.
We'll see. But I think him and then also Tyrod Taylor's ability to run will test your defense a lot, and it's going to be interesting. And I think we got the other finger hurt Carr out there throwing balls.
So other finger hurt Carr equals Matt McGloin,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, it's just,
No.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's just like
Matt McGloy equals a guy from the stands that they just brought down to the field to play. That's what Matt McGloin is.
So you mean that wasn't so? That just sounds like your teams for the last 14 years. Wasn't that more or less what they've had? Yeah.
He's Andrew Walter like times 10.
Jesus Christ. Let's not compare him to Andrew Walter. That's mean. That's mean.
Well, if you would actually show some improvement except in the preseason, then maybe I wouldn't have to compare him to freaking Andrew Walter.
Oh man. All right. Should we move on to my game now?
Yes. Bucks at Chargers Sunday late game.
All right. So, in the group notes, I made a nice little witty comment that Chris thought was funny. I talked about us roasting some lobster. Now we're going for some crab legs with Jameis Winston and the 6-5 Buccaneers coming to San Diego to face the Chargers. The Bucks came off a very impressive win against the Seahawks this past week, 14-5 win. The Bucks defense, which has been a group of, I guess, I don't know the right word for this. I guess it's sort of just like ambiguity. Like they just don't know what they were the whole time. They stiffened up. They were not nice to the Seahawks offense. They only allowed big runs from Russell Wilson. He had 8 carries for 80 yards, but that was it. I think Thomas Rawls had 12 carries for 38 yards. So they held the running back rushing offense to nothing. And they sacked Russell Wilson 6 times. And the first 4 of them came within the first 20 offensive snaps for Seattle. They were after him pretty much early and often. Seattle was held to next to nothing on third downs. They only converted 1 of their 11. Pass coverage for the Bucs was also surprisingly strong given the noted struggles they've had with their secondary this season. They only allowed 151 yards and had 2 interceptions by Altron Werner and Bradley McDougald. On offense, Jameis Winston found Mike Evans early and often, had 8 receptions for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Jameis overall played a solid game at quarterback, 21 for 28, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Doug Martin, minus his fumble, also had a pretty solid game, 23 carries for 87 yards. Very, very well done performance overall by the Bucs. Very little mistakes. Beyond, I think, Luke Stalker's pseudo hold in the end zone. I'm not even sure how that was a hold, but it was. That caused the safety, but that and the fumble and the interception probably were the only real mistakes that the Bucs offense made. And as for the game, for our, predicting our game, the game is going to begin and end in the trenches. It always does for us. It really just depends on how the Lions play. And even though the Bucs offensive line did a very good job against a Seattle front, without Michael Bennett, I still don't think they're a very good offensive line. I think their weaknesses have been well documented. I think their players are not, as a whole, very good. I can't say I trust any of them too strongly. And as a unit, I don't think they're going to hold up all that well against San Diego. Even though our defensive line is probably weaker than Seattle's, I don't think it's just going to be as much of a cakewalk as it was, theoretically, to go up against Seattle. So, our D-line needs to meet that challenge. They need to, go up and get against that Bucs defense, or that Bucs offensive line, and, punch him right in the mouth. Basically, Joey Bosa's got to go against the tackles, Donovan Smith and DeMar Dotson, and he's got to just beat them, straight up. And he can do that. Damian Square and Corey just have to take up the interior with Pamphile and Hawley and who was the other one? Marpet, that's it. And if they do that, then basically the run game is stopped. The pass rush goes crazy with Ingram and Bosa, and we rattle Jameis Winston. He makes mistakes. And on our side, the Chargers' offensive line needs to be at their best to fight back against that Tampa Bay defensive front that just basically is like a hive of bees, just swarms around and through offensive lines. It's just not funny how badly they made Seattle's offensive line look the other day. Our O-line isn't as bad as Seattle's because their offensive line is literally just a bunch of defensive tackles who, for some reason, are in the wrong position. But no, really.
Tom Cable. That's right.
Tyler with the experience for Tom Cable. But
Yeah.
he wasn't that bad. He was 8-8. But Gerald McCoy, Levante David. What's up?
He punched a coordinator in the face.
Some Buddy Ryan level stuff going on over there. But Gerald McCoy, Levante David, Quan Alexander, and the other players that they've got are pretty dangerous as individuals. So nobody in our line has to be slacking. They can't do it. And if they do it, then Philip and Melvin are gonna have really rough days. The individual matchup to watch, I'll try to wrap this up as fast as I can. Mike Evans versus Casey Hayward. Clearly the biggest thing, right? I mean, Mike Evans balled out against Richard Sherman and the Legion of Boom. Now he goes up against our cornerback 3 and NFL interception leader Casey Hayward. Easy things first. Jameis Winston uses Mike Evans as a big-time security blanket. As you can imagine, both touchdowns, the only 2 touchdowns of the game against the Bucs and Seahawks, came from Mike Evans. So if we produce pressure and force Jameis to make some early throws, Casey's got a good nose for the ball. He's got 6 interceptions and he's making some crazy picks too. So any poorly thrown ball can be taken by Casey Hayward. If that happens, I mean, that's gonna start clinching the game for us. Evans is pretty big-bodied. He's a pretty physical receiver out of Texas A&M at the line of scrimmage has a really, really underrated jump off the snap, I think, in my opinion. So Hayward needs to not get caught by those first moves and just keep on trailing Mike Evans as best he can. If he covers him, then the Bucs are going to be stuck with throwing to other random receivers and using Doug Martin. And if our D-line holds up, that puts the offense in a really, really bad position. I think our defense is capable of doing that. I think we can actually do it. We have a lot of unique playmakers on our team that can do a number of different things in the run and the pass, and I'm going to call it a win for us. I think the momentum coming off the Houston win and our offense playing as well as it is, our defense playing as well as it is, can hold on to a pretty decent Bucs team. I think we'll take the game. I'm calling it 28-21. Sure.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go 24-17 Bucks because I like Jameis Winston and Mike Evans.
All right.
Yeah.
And they beat you.
He likes his fantasy team.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And they beat the Chiefs recently, so I mean. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to say 33-30 Chargers just because you're at home and I feel like I can't predict the Bucs at all cuz I mean, they're up
I'm
and
going to
down.
flip that and go 33-30 Bucs because they play better on the road.
All right. Well,
Okay.
All right. Before we end the show, I just want to, we've played through 12 weeks. Go through the playoff standings because the playoff picture is really starting to come together. Oakland currently is the 2nd seed in the AFC behind New England.
Woohoo!
The Chiefs have the 5 seed, 1 game behind the Raiders at 8-3. Raiders are 9-2, by the way. With that loss, Denver is now not in the playoffs if the season ended today.
I think
As
currently
Miami is 7-4, Denver is 7-4, and Miami has the tiebreaker based on conference record.
right.
And the Chargers are kind of hanging around. They're down
We're
there
like
at 5-6.
We're like 12th or something, aren't we? We're around
Yeah,
there.
you're in 12. 2 games back of the 6th seed. So
Right.
anything
And they
can
could
happen.
still take the 3 seed. That's the problem here.
I
The
think,
wide open AFC West.
well, the
crazy.
Dolphin Bros are going to do us a big one this week and they're going to lose, so they're our Dolphin Bros. They've always done us big when it came to getting into the playoffs.
Listen, Angela teams got to stick together.
That's right.
We help each other out.
Yep. All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week. Come back next week, and hopefully we have some more super exciting games to talk about.